Goeiemôre graad 10s. Vandag gaan ons verder kyk na die uitgebreide konsepte van sagte ware. Hierdie video's sal dit vir jou op 'n meer praktiese wyse kan illustreer. Nadat jy die video's gekyk het, wil ek jy moet jy asseblief vir my die invulvragies doen van module 1.6. Hierdie vragies is al reeds op die WhatsApp groepie gepost. Indien jy nog nie op die WhatsApp groep is nie, moet jy asseblief een van jou maats vra om jou op die WhatsApp groep te add, of vra dat hulle jou nommer vir my stuur sodat ek jou daarop kan sit. Ek het ook al reeds module 1.5 se antwoorde op die WhatsApp groepie gepost. Ons gesels weer binnekort.
Consider yourself working in the marketing department of a large organization. You are the manager of one of the units in the department, and your unit is responsible for updating sales reports. Let's look at how you spend a typical day. Throughout the day, you use your email. In the morning, you receive an email from one of your staff members. She is working on a quarterly report and needs your feedback. You open up the report in your word processor software, add some comments, and then send the report back to her. A little bit later, you get a phone call alerting you that the new sales figures have been updated. You open up your database software to check the latest numbers. You take last week's data and export it to spreadsheet software to make a graph of the trend in sales of selected products. You have a meeting later in the day, and so you copy and paste the new graph into your presentation software to prepare a slideshow so you can share your sales analysis. Back in your office after the meeting, you type up your meeting notes in your word processing software, include the graph from the spreadsheet software, and send this all around to the staff. It was another fine day at the office. The various types of software that you have used each have their own specific functionality. However, they are often used in combination, and it makes sense to bundle them in an office suite or productivity suite. An office software suite is a collection of software applications that are distributed together and are designed to interact with each other. Applications typically included in a software suite are word processing, spreadsheet, presentation, and database software. Many other software applications can be bundled into an office suite. For example, illustration software, photo editing software, software to create diagrams, collaborative software tools, and several others. However, these are less common, and whether they are included or not depends on the type of office suite. There are a number of benefits to using an office suite instead of a series of independent software applications. The various software applications have a similar interface. This makes it easier to learn the software and to switch between them. The software is designed to work together. This makes it easier to insert documents of one type into another. For example, if you can copy a graph from a spreadsheet into a presentation, you are still able to edit the graph because the programs are linked. The cost of an office suite is often much less than the sum of the various applications combined. Typically, when an organization adopts office suite software, most employees will end up using the software from the same company. This can reduce training costs and facilitate sharing of documents. Remember the example where you open a report written by one of your staff members, added some comments on it, and then returned it to her? That's a lot easier if you are both using the same software. However, even if you are not using the same software, you can still collaborate with each other on the same documents. Office suites have built-in tools to convert different formats, so you can open up a document in your software even if it was created using software from a different company. There are a number of office suites made by different companies. One of the most widely used office suites is Microsoft Office. This includes Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access. Originally developed for the Windows operating system, this Office suite also has a version for Mac OS. OpenOffice by Apache is a free and open source Office suite. It includes Writer, Calc, Impress, and Base. A different version of this suite is also available under the name LibreOffice with the same applications. Specifically for the Mac, there is iWork by Apple. It includes Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, but it lacks a database application. Unique about iWork is that it is also available for the iOS operating system used on mobile phones made by Apple. Typical Office Suite software is installed on the hard drive of the particular computer, known as a local installation. Recently, there has been a trend to make software available completely online. This software as a service approach does not require a local installation, and software can be accessed online using only an internet browser. One of the most widely used online Office suites is Google Docs by Google. This includes word processing, spreadsheet, and presentation capabilities. Google Docs also makes it possible to work with your document on a mobile phone with the Android operating system. Office Suite software is a collection of commonly used applications. A typical Office Suite includes word processing, spreadsheet, presentation, and database software. There are a number of different Office suites, including commercial and free and open source versions.
All software applications require a software license in order to run. A software license is a legal instrument that governs how the software can be used and distributed. When you download or install software, you are asked to agree to the terms of a license. If you are like most computer users, you probably don't read the entire license in any detail. Software is generally copyright protected, unless it is specifically made available in the public domain. A typical license grants a user permission to use one or more copies of the software without copyright infringement. A license does not mean you have to pay for the software. Even free software is licensed. A license is simply the mechanism that authorizes you to use the software, separate from any fees you may need to pay to obtain a license. Commercial software is software that is produced for sale. Software falls in two broad categories: proprietary software and open source software. Each will be discussed in some detail. Proprietary software consists of software that is licensed by the copyright holder under very specific conditions. In general, you can use the software, but you are not allowed to modify the software or distribute it to others. The original source code for the software is not available, which means you can't see the actual code written by the programmers. Proprietary software is therefore also referred to as closed source software. This is done on purpose to protect the intellectual property invested in software development. If the source code were released, even with copyright restrictions, competitors could benefit from using this code. Many proprietary software applications are also commercial, meaning that you have to pay for a license. However, many other proprietary software applications are free. The fact that software is free does not mean it is not proprietary. There are numerous examples of proprietary software. Both the Windows and Mac operating systems are proprietary, and so are many of the typical software applications used in organizations, such as Microsoft Office. Many specialized software applications, such as those used for database management in various types of enterprise information systems, are also proprietary. In many cases, software companies have invested many years of software development into a product. By making the software proprietary, they are protecting their investment and make it possible to commercialize their software. The revenue from software sales can then be used to continue developing the software. Shareware is proprietary software that is made available to users at no cost under certain conditions. For example, shareware may have limited functionality relative to the commercial version of the same software, or the license for the software may expire after a certain trial period. The rationale behind shareware is to give potential users the chance to evaluate the software before investing in a license fee. Trial versions of commercial software fall under the shareware category. Open source software, as the name suggests, is software for which the source code is released. This means that users can look at exactly how the software was created using one or more programming languages. This is done on purpose so that anyone can benefit from using the code. A typical license for open source software gives users the right to modify and distribute the software. Open source software is typically free to use, which has led to the use of the term free and open source software, or FOSS. This acronym is widely used, but many people use FOSS and open source software interchangeably. Open source software is often developed in a collaborative manner, where many users contribute to ongoing improvements. Typically, a user community maintains a website where the latest version of the software can be obtained, and where users can share ideas on how to use and improve the software. The license for most open source software uses what some have called copyleft. This is a play on the word copyright. To understand what this means, it is worth considering how open source software could be misused by someone. Consider that anybody can download, modify, and distribute open source software. What would stop a company from creating its own version of the software and then start selling it? That is where copyleft comes in. The license for open source software specifically states that a user is not allowed to put restrictions on its use or distribution. So by agreeing to the license, you can't start selling the software later. Copyleft uses copyright law to make open source software freely available to be modified, requiring that all modified and extended versions are to be free as well. The most widely used example of a copyleft license is the GNU Public License, or GPL. So when you look at software and you see that the license is GPL, this means the software is open source. There are numerous examples of free and open source software applications. One of the most successful examples is the Linux operating system. Linux is used by many organizations and has also resulted in numerous spin-off efforts. For example, the Android operating system used on mobile phones is based on Linux and is also free and open source. Open source software has become very popular. Think of any proprietary software application, and there is likely a free and open source alternative that provides similar functionality. If so much software is free, why do organizations keep paying for commercial software? There are a number of reasons, but some of the key reasons are: commercial software is often a little more polished and easier to use. For example, the Linux operating system is very powerful, but can be difficult to use by someone who is just getting started with computers. Some open source software is mostly for computer enthusiasts who enjoy figuring stuff out when it comes to computers. If you have a particular job to do, it may be most cost-effective to pay for a license and save time by using a software application that is easier to use. Open source software is developed by a user community, but this often lacks critical support services. Consider an organization that has built their entire database using open source software. Everything works great until one day the entire system crashes and they risk losing all their data. Who is going to help fix the problem? You can likely find consultants who specialize in that type of software, but software from a commercial vendor often comes with some type of support. In practice, you will likely use both proprietary software and free and open source software, often without realizing which one you are using. For example, perhaps you are using the Windows operating system and you have Microsoft Office installed because that is what everyone else in the office is using. Those are examples of software applications that are both commercial and proprietary. You also have iTunes installed to manage your music, which is both free and proprietary. Your web browser is Mozilla Firefox, which is free and open source software. Next time you install some new software, read the license to see what type of software you are really using. And remember, just because some software is free does not mean it is also open source. All software applications require a software license, which is a legal instrument that governs how the software can be used and distributed. Proprietary software consists of software that is licensed by the copyright holder under very specific conditions. Typically, you are not allowed to modify or distribute the software. Some proprietary software is commercial and you have to pay for a license, but other proprietary software is free. Free and open source software is software that is freely distributed and for which the source code is released. The license for this type of software states that you can use, modify, and distribute the software. A typical license also states that any future releases of modified versions of the software can only be released under the same conditions. This keeps open source software both free and open source. Some of the most successful examples of open source software are the Linux and Android operating systems. Despite the widespread availability of free software, it may be cost-effective to pay for a commercial software license based on the ease of use and availability of support.
Software is a generic term for an organized collection of computer data and instructions. There are two types of software: application software and system software. Application software helps users solve a particular problem or carry out a specific task. A word processor is an example of application software. System software coordinates the activities and functions of hardware and software, and it controls the operations of computer hardware. A computer's operating system is an example of system software. Operating systems control the computer hardware and act as an interface with the application programs. System software also includes utility software, device drivers, and firmware, which we'll be looking at in this lesson. Utility software helps to manage, maintain, and control computer resources. Operating systems typically contain the necessary tools for this, but separate utility programs can provide improved functionality. Utility software is often somewhat technical and targeted at users with a solid knowledge of computers. If you use a computer mostly for email, some internet browsing, and typing up a report, you may not have much need for these utilities. However, if you are an avid computer user, these utilities can help make sure your computer stays in tip-top shape. Examples of utility programs are antivirus software, backup software, and disk tools. Let's look at each of these in a bit more detail. Antivirus software, as the name suggests, helps to protect a computer system from viruses and other harmful programs. A computer virus is a computer program that can cause damage to a computer's software, hardware, or data. It is referred to as a virus because it has the capability to replicate itself and hide inside other computer files. One of the most common ways to get a virus is to download a file from the internet. Antivirus software scans your online activity to make sure you are not downloading infected files. New viruses are coming out all the time, so antivirus software needs to be updated very frequently. Backup software helps in the creation of a backup of the files on your computer. Most computer systems use a hard disk drive for storage. While these are generally very robust, they can fail or crash, resulting in costly data loss. Backup software helps you copy the most important files to another storage device, such as an external hard disk. You can also make an exact copy of your hard disk. Increasingly, backup software uses cloud storage to create backups. This typically means you pay a fee to use the storage space of a third party and use their backup software to manage which files are going to be backed up. Disk tools include a range of different tools to manage hard disk drives and other storage devices. This includes utilities to scan the hard disks for any potential problems, disk cleaners to remove unnecessary files, and disk defragmenters to reorganize file fragments on a hard disk drive to increase performance. Disk tools are important because a failure of a hard disk drive can have disastrous consequences. Keeping disks running efficiently is an important part of overall computer maintenance. A device driver is a computer program that controls a particular device that is connected to your computer. Typical devices are keyboards, printers, scanners, digital cameras, and external storage devices. Each of these needs a driver in order to work properly. Device drivers act as a translator between the operating system of the computer and the device connected to it. For many types of devices, the necessary drivers are built into the operating system. When you plug in a device, the operating system starts looking for the right driver, installs it, and you're ready to start using the device. This is referred to as plug and play, and is much preferred over having to manually install the correct drivers. There are so many different devices, however, that not all of them are built into the operating system. As an alternative, the operating system can look online to find the right driver to install. Many hardware devices, however, come with the necessary drivers. For example, if you buy a printer, it may come with a CD that will typically include the correct driver. The advantage of this is that the hardware manufacturer can make sure you have the right driver for the printer. Firmware is a combination of software and hardware. It includes the instructions to control hardware, which is just like software. It also includes hardware in the form of the actual memory chip where the instructions are stored. Technically, firmware consists of permanent software stored into read-only memory. Computer systems use a special type of firmware known as BIOS, or Basic Input-Output System. It represents the basic code to get the computer started. You can think of BIOS as the firmware for the motherboard of your computer. The BIOS determines what a computer can do without accessing programs from a disk. It contains all the code required to control the keyboard, display screen, disk drivers, serial communications, and a number of other functions. The BIOS is typically placed in a read-only memory, or ROM, chip that comes with the computer. It is therefore often called a ROM BIOS. ROM is a type of non-volatile storage, which means that the information is maintained even if the computer loses power. In a typical computer system, the ROM chip is located on the motherboard. This ensures that the BIOS will always be available and will not be damaged by disk failures. It also makes it possible for a computer to boot itself. Firmware may need to be updated to fix minor bugs or add features to the device. For example, perhaps you have a DVD player connected to your TV to play movies, but it can also stream movies from online streaming services. Under most circumstances, you don't need to make any changes to your DVD player, but once in a while, you may get a message on your TV that some time of update is needed. This will typically be a firmware update for the device. Since your device is set up to connect to the internet, the update can be downloaded and installed automatically. However, in some devices, the firmware is permanent and cannot be changed. The BIOS of a computer may need updating once in a while, but that's not very common. Modifying the BIOS is typically a task performed by a computer specialist trying to repair a computer system that has not been performing as expected. System software coordinates the activities and functions of hardware and software, and it controls the operations of computer hardware. System software includes operating systems, utility software, device drivers, and firmware. Operating systems control the computer hardware and act as an interface with application programs. Utility software helps to manage, maintain, and control computer resources. Examples of utility programs are antivirus software, backup software, and disk tools. A device driver is a computer program that controls a particular device that is connected to your computer. Firmware consists of persistent memory with program code or data. Computer systems use a special type of firmware known as BIOS, or Basic Input-Output System. This represents the basic code to get the computer started.